I'd like to share with you a very, very foundational, important principle. And I would say that if a person learns to master these principles, their lives are lived very differently if they do not have them. Now, what happens in life is we live a life and we hope, there's like a calling of hope that we will learn all the elements that we need in life as we go along in life to live a well-lived life. However, the truth is, most people dabble in that which is important in life. They dabble in relationships or dabble in physical health and financial health, dabble in intellectual and emotional health. And what happens is that we don't pick up these foundations and we place our attention on other what we think is important principles, and we miss out. We miss out in learning to nurture deep, healthy, wonderful relationships, loving relationships, and we as well miss out for so many people the understanding of self and having the ability to manifest ourselves. And what happens is that so many people, as we said, miss out, and that hurts me personally. That hurts me. One of the things that I'm really passionate about, as we've mentioned so many times before, is upgrading our lives, upgrading my life, and helping people upgrade their lives. So I'd like to share something which I believe and I know so deeply is so important, and we'll see what happens. You please judge it for yourself, think about it, and we'll take it one step at a time. So we have this very interesting occurrence in our Sedra of Lecha. The words Lecha translate as Lech, go, Lecha, into yourself. Go into yourself. And we've spoken about this many times before, how the key element of life is very much to do with self-mastery. The more we understand ourselves, the more we know ourselves, the more we recognize ourselves, the more we know how to understand our triggers, our wants, our needs, our desires, and live a healthy life that they're met in a good way. So that's a well-lived life. It's a very, very well-lived life. Yet, unfortunately, the emphasis of self-knowledge has not been the conversation that we really need to hear. It hasn't been the conversation. And as we know, the famous Ibn Ezra and Shemot, if a person doesn't know themselves, they can't know anything else. They can't know HaKadosh Baruch Hu, they can't know anybody else outside of them, which is really to do with awareness, self-awareness, and what awareness is. And Lech Lecha is really a calling for self-awareness. Lech Lecha is a calling for a definitive understanding of who I am, what I am, a definitive conversation with what's important to me, what are my boundaries, what are my needs and wants. Now what happens, what we can say is that Bereshis and Noach are what we could label an aspect of chesed. That really things are not defined. If we look at the narrative, things aren't defined. The people of the lands are trying to find their space, they're trying to find their way, and really the stage, so to speak, is being set up. The stage is being set up for the human being. There's a famous question: why is it that the Torah is only makabel a lot later? Why not in Bereshis? Why much later? Why? Because there has to be a backdrop of humanity finding themselves, understanding who they are, what they are, having the ability to discuss, to talk, to analyze, to think, to be creative. So Bereshis and Noach, so to speak, is this aspect of chesed, that things are coming into play, going out of play, building, falling apart. Then after chesed we have Gevura. What's Gevura? Gevura is really definition. Gevura's definition is boundaries. Gevura is having a sense of self. It's an aspect of Gevura. And then what happens when a person has that sense of self? A person can hold their own space. Tiferes, we could meet others. We could meet others and we can share with others. And that's beautiful. That's what beauty is. And what's very fascinating is that when our space is violated, when the space of who I am is not met, not respect, then I go back to an aspect of Bereshis Anoch to Chesed. Chesed is where one thing flows into another without definition. So we have this Chesed, a lack of definition. Gevura is where definition and boundaries are coming into play, a sense of self, a sense of identity. Then Tiferes is where we could meet the other with my boundaries in place, me respecting their boundaries, and we could support each other in each other's happiness, and we could support each other in each other's wants and needs, being of service to each other. So with this as an introduction, it's very fascinating how Lech Lecha, which, as we said, go into yourself, Lech Lecha, go meet yourself, it seems very selfish. It's very much about the self. It's very selfish. Yet then when we look at the character of Avraham, we look at our Av, Avraham, he's Ish Chesed. Avraham is the one that's going out, his tents are open. What we can suggest here is that if a person doesn't have that foundational sense of self, if a person doesn't meet their truer self, then they can't meet anyone else. They can't meet anyone else. And the first parsha that introduces us to our Av, the Av, Avraham of Chesed, is that of Lech Lecha, go into yourself. So we have what seems a little bit of a mismatch. Lech Lecha, selfishness, go into yourself. Chesed, selflessness. How? We can suggest that the stronger a person has a self-knowledge, the greater self-understanding we have, the more that we could intellectually intellectually manage ourselves and emotionally manage ourselves, our mindset and our heart set. When we really have a firm grip on that, then I can go meet whoever I need to meet. I can go out and I could be a Baal Chesed. If a person is not living a life where they have their wants and needs known, at least to themselves, and when they don't have the proper boundaries, and people are walking over them, you're no use to anybody, you can't do chesed. So Lech Lecha, go into yourself, is so fitting. Of course. Avram Avinu, the father of chesed? Of course. There has to be this element of gevura. Lech Lecha, go into yourself. Don't go out before you've gone in. Recognize, in order for us to be of service for others, for the world, we first have to reclaim and claim ourselves. Establishing the proper boundaries in our lives. Establishing what I need in my life. And then once that's understood, once that's actualized, then I could be a power machine of real, healthy chesed, which is this aspect of knowing the other, which really, as we said, we could pull this into the ideas. Bechin of Tiferes is beautiful. But when a person doesn't know themselves, when a person hasn't claimed and reclaimed themselves, then when they go out, all they do is damage. All they do is damage. So Lech Lecha is our first parsha that deals with our nation. And what are we told? Lech Lecha, reclaim yourself, Gevura. Have a sense of identity. Know your needs, know your wants in a healthy way. Actualize proper healthy boundaries, that you're not walked over and your identity is not lost in the process. That's Avram, the father of a nation. The only way that could manifest is with the Gevura. So we've had the Chesed now, hodgepodge, a big mix-up, a big mess. Out of that, we come to realize, okay, I have to pull back. I have to pull back. I'm in an unhealthy relationship. I need to pull back. I need to find myself. I need to recognize and reclaim myself. I just want to add here that this beautifully fits into the Mishnah in Avos, the first Mishnah, or the 14th Mishnah, Yad, in the first parak of Avos. We're told beautifully, Hu haya omer, im ein ani li, mi li, if I'm not for myself, who will be for me? Ukasha ani la'atzmi, and if I'm just for myself, or when I'm just for myself, mani, what am I? Ve'im lo achshav, and if not now, emasai, when? And hopefully we'll unpack this, but we can say that Parshas Lecha is this first part of the Mishnah. Im ein ani li, mi li. If I'm not for myself, mi li, me, who am I? So Be'ezras Hashem, we can live with such deep bracha of harnessing and cultivating a healthy identity, a healthy sense of self, that we understand our needs and we understand our wants in a healthy way and articulate them precisely, gracefully, with majesty. So we can then go out and build such deep, healthy, wonderful and wondrous relationships. Be'ezras Hashem. Im ein ani li, mi li. Avram Avinu. Parshas Lech Lecha.